Public, private, hybrid cloud and their differences that we are going to be studying. Let me. So there are three types of clouds that we need to discuss today. Public cloud, private cloud, hybrid cloud, and we're going to cover all of these. So what is public cloud? So there are two types of cloud at the moment that we can focus on. If we understand the cloud service provider versus making our own cloud, which could be a private cloud, then it will make much more easier to understand. So let's say if we acquire the services from Azure or AWS, that will be a cloud service provider that is providing us the service. The other alternate will be, we don't trust them and we're going to create our own data center. And this data center term will come more when we'll be looking at cloud service provider. But if we said no, we are going to do it ourselves, then it will be a private cloud. So the public cloud is obviously going to the giants to provide us. So everything runs on the cloud. Uh, Provider provides the hardware, infrastructure, and everything. No local hardware. In the public cloud, the other key characteristics are, so you might see some repetition, but when I'm making some slides, I will just uh, repeat some PowerPoints. I will not repeat those, but this is the additional point. Some services share hardware with other customers, and this is what bothers people in the healthcare industry as well, that we don't want to share anything. Well, it is not an actual sharing. Everybody will have their slice in the uh, in the public cloud, but it will not gonna mingle. But it is what it is. There will be some stiffness coming from the um, old IT professionals and government organizations that don't want change that quick and don't want to jump the gun. And I can totally understand what their concerns are. Some services share the hardware and other customers. The public cloud has some advantages and disadvantages. Obviously, the biggest disadvantage we all know is the security and compliance. Our hardware, our compliance, our purchase belongs to us. We are the owners. We are taking the ownership of it. We are the owners, which again we can contain the we are sorry in the public cloud like Amazon, the ownership, like who is owning that company. Obviously, Azure is owned by Microsoft and AWS by Amazon, but there is no particular ownership. If, for example, if the data is breached uh, of for some company, and which is highly unlikely, if one company's data is breached, the other company is responsible for their own data. But you might think of, oh, our data might lie on their data center, we might lose our confidentiality as well. So this raised some concerns. With public cloud, we all know there is no capital expenditure, high availability and agility, pay-as-you-go model, no hardware maintenance, no deep technical skills required. So this is the public cloud with its advantage if we go to all those subscriber where we subscribe for services. On the other hand, on the private cloud, we set up our own data center. We are not relying on the cloud service provider, Amazon or Azure, and we are just saying, though we are not going there, we are going to create our own data center. Well, this requires a lot of capital expenditure, and this we will see when we'll go to the uh, disadvantages of it. But look at, everything runs on your own data center and it requires high operational cost. Obviously, uh, the electricity, the air that has to go out of the data center because of the heat and everything. All those resources will have to be allocated at your end, air conditioning and everything that you need to keep the data center running. So the power and the hardware itself, if the hardware fails, if it is a hot swappable or not, or you need to bring something down, it's all your responsibility. Self-serve should be provided. Self-services should be provided. But here you go. If you look at the uh, private cloud's advantages, can support any scenario because it's your own hardware. Control, you have your own control over your security and can meet any security and compliance requirement because this is all in your hand, playing in your hand. But problem is, again, obviously the initial capital, limited agility because the number of hardware, the hardware that you put, you can all, if there is a sudden increase to your website, it can only handle what your hardware promises with you when you are purchasing it. But remember, in AWS and Azure, it has uh, unlimited agility. It can cope with it and it automatically react to it. And if it has to be auto, it needs to be scalable. Infinite, I would not say infinite level of scalability, but it will have the scalability associated with it. So you will get some um, scalability and elasticity with it, and obviously, but here you are only limited to your hardware, which you know that this is how much juice you have put in and this much money you have. Azure and AWS, they they are not liable to tell you that how much resources they have put in their data centers because you are just renting it out. So you are just taking the slide out. Uh, so limited agility and IT skills and expertise are mandatory at your own data center. So somebody should be there available maybe 24/7 if you are trying to achieve the maximum high availability and fault tolerance. Somebody just sitting there and monitoring your server or servers within that data center. The last model is called hybrid model. Uh, not discussed in detail as such, but I will mention it that it's a mix of cloud and your own data center. So some you will some services that you think that, oh, you will run it on your private cloud, but some services that you say no, we can compromise. If you think you can compromise a little bit of security, which is not actually the case, but if there is some flexibility available, you can have the cloud model available. I remember in the cloud model, you can in the cloud infrastructure, let's say if you have SQL database, and I'm going to mention that if you have SQL database, which is one of the part of the cloud services, if the cloud if you create the database on the cloud, and if you have the database available on and the similar database that is available on the local machine, they can both sync together. They can exchange the data between themselves. So if one server so obviously cloud server is available most of the time, but if your local server for some reason went down, hybrid will say that in the hybrid model, if the database has the record sync with each other, and that usually happen every 5, 10, 15 minutes, how much ever interval you set. So whatever you have, if you are storing the data on your local server first and then syncing it every 15 minutes to the cloud, you will have guaranteed that 15-minute availability up to last 15 minutes availability of the data. And let's say if your server hasn't synced, your local server hasn't synced with the server on the cloud, and you have five or six, let's say 5 or 6 more transactions that is uh, available on the local server, but they are not synced yet. to the cloud and your server goes down, you will, and if it has a catastrophic or something like that, you will lose those 5 transactions. But cloud is still guaranteeing that because of the hybrid model, the sync is happening every 15 minutes. I can guarantee that you can go back to that last 15-minute sync that has happened and you can get all those transactions. So this is how hybrid model works. It works on a syncing strategy. You will have to set some sync strategy. You cannot just say that it will be available on your server and right away it will be available on the cloud server. There is a 5 minute, 15 minute, or 20 minutes lag and 1 hour difference. Whatever you want to create, you can create it, all up to your discretion. But why just not have it on the cloud? If 99.9% of your data is already on the cloud because of the syncing, uh, only because of those 5 or 6 transactions which are latest transaction, you might say. But it's all up to the systems that are being designed. If the system is old and legacy system and it is hard and rigid because it is looking for the local server or local IP, local server, which it is being connected and people are already working on it. So you will say that, okay, we'll keep the local data local, but we will actually keep syncing it to the cloud until and unless we have a new system, new ERP system developed or new website developed. Uh, we will keep that running, and we may decide one day that it will be a cutoff date that we will switch totally to the cloud above. So it's a mix of uh, own data center versus cloud data center provider. Hybrid uh, has a great flexibility, and that's what I was mentioning. Run the legacy app in the private cloud in your own data center, and then you can actually put it to the private cloud as well. Utilize existing infrastructure within the organization, and you need to actually purchase some of the infrastructure on the cloud because you're renting it, and meet the any security requirements. You can still meet some security requirements. You will say that this part of the almost this part of the security will be us, and then we can encrypt the data. And when you encrypt the data, it is going on the web or on the cloud as encrypted. When it's getting downloaded, only then it can get decrypted. So when you use WhatsApp, it says that your data is guaranteed that it is end-to-end encrypted, meaning that when you are typing it and when you press send button, it gets encrypted with some kind of mumble jumbled key. So A is changed into, let's say for example, X, B is changed into Y, C is changed into some other character, and when the user receives it, it hits and enter their end with the same encrypted characters. But when they open up the message or they receive the message on their phone, it gets decrypted at that end. That is why they say it's end-to-end encrypted, and that's the same thing you can develop here. We still require IT resources because obviously because of the hybrid model, we need somebody to support our own existing data center. Sometimes very complicated to manage and very cumbersome, because if your local goes down and a cloud is still running, cloud is expecting some data, but it does not get synced until your local comes back up. Coming back to the slide, coming back to the document, I have described that to you so you can see it is the summary of everything that I just explained. So the cloud deployment model is simply is a separation between these 3 cloud providers. Um, so public totally depends upon the public cloud provider. There is no data center that you own. In the hybrid model, you will have a cloud provider and you will have your own data center. And in the private one, you don't trust the cloud provider and you will have your own data center as available to you. So these are some advantages, disadvantages that we have run through. You can go through when you will be reading, because I have gone through over this in the slides, but you can run through those. Let's take a 10 minutes break here. At 6:33, we'll meet at 6:43, and we will continue from there. So I'm back here. So I'm going to upload these slides as I did yesterday on D2L. You'll see that right now they are with me, but nothing is there that I'm talking is not that it is missing from this part as well. You can access this information as well. It's more of a short summary, and then I think it has, yeah, it has all the short summary available to you. The study guide. So this is for you to study when we will be done with this topic today. We are starting a fairly interesting topic, which I think is one of the good part of the exam as well, of the Azure certification fundamental exam. And as you can see, they will be not be asking too many technical questions to how to do this and do that in the Azure fundamental exam. They will be asking you all the key terminologies, because uh, first the theoretical foundations has to be set so that you can build upon that and make an associate diploma or associate certificate in this. So you need to have a basic understanding of what each component is comprised of. It's a it's an infrastructure that is available worldwide. So the worldwide understanding of it, wherever you go, whichever country you want to help deploy their data on a data center, you should have a basic knowledge, because if you don't have the basic knowledge, or if you are a consultant working for bringing the company's data to a cloud, uh, you need to understand all the terminology. Doesn't matter if you are in Canada or in Asia or some other region of the world. So basic understanding still works the same. So what is data center? When we talk about data center, in general, when we talk about the data center uh, in the private cloud, these are the things that we can think of, that we will have more than one server available in the data center. Each server will have some functionality associated with it, whether it's a SQL database, whether it's a web, or whether they are providing the virtual machine. Speaking of what virtual machine, I know Ali know how to make the virtual machine. Have you guys tried making a virtual machine? Any success on that? Please let me know. Okay, Leonardo, yeah, you were not there. So I was running into yeah, good. I was running into some questions yesterday with the students who don't know about, like, a couple of people know about virtual machines, but a lot of other people doesn't know. So I emphasized yesterday to have the concept of virtual machine. I literally showed virtual machines to you guys, which are installed on my system, and I was able to boot them up. I didn't boot them up, but I actually showed them that they are available on my VMware, and I can use them. I did not go through of how to create a virtual machine, but I gave the basic idea how the virtual machine works. Uh, my expectation is, and IT expectation is, if somebody hasn't gone over with you in the past to how to create a virtual machine, but as an IT professional, I'll give you peace of mind that you should know how to create a virtual machine. And it's not hard. Give it a try. Not everything will be handpicked and taught to you by the teachers. Some material internet is full of information. Find the right material, find the right YouTube video, and you should be able to create the virtual machine. Take the hesitancy out of it that you will break your computer. Okay, So coming back to the topic, data center. What is data center? It is the physical facility. It is actually the physical facility for Azure. So I'm not going to talk too much about private clouds now. Uh, I'm talking mostly about uh, Azure and AWS, and in particular Azure now. I will stop using Azure if AWS anymore, because this is not that course. But data center. What is data center? It will, it is a facility where you will be hosting a group of network servers, and those network servers have the responsibility to either run SQL, web, or VM. So if you acquire some service in the data center, you might be uh, depending upon where the server is located, because that is the next topic coming up, where is the location of the server. But depending upon where the server is located, if out of these 6 dedicated servers, one is dedicated for SQL, it is highly likely that your SQL database that you are going to create reside in the first 3. Let's say first 3 are responsible for SQL, next 2 are responsible for VM, third one, which is probably a light one, I don't know, but I can say that the sixth one is for the web. So you end up highly likely to be in the data center on the server 1, server 2, or server 3. They are connected with each other. And how the setup of the data center happens, that's a topic of a network engineer, network engineers working together to set up a data center and deploying all the services that they are ready to broadcast to the outside world. So a typical data center requires the own power, the cooling, and the networking infrastructure. So some additional cost apart from the software services that you are going to provide, the power, the cooling, and the networking. So these, if you think of it in the terms of you will make your own private cloud, think of all these. You might want to take out couple here and there services, but for the most part, you will be investing on all the power, cooling, and networking. So if you have data centers, you can have, and as I said when I showed you in the first class, that data center, there are regions that are made across the globe. North America, maybe Canada has 2 data centers, US has a lot more data centers. So even data centers are also connected with each other. So right now they are not showing on the map, but a region, a new keyword, region, comes in here, which means data center 1 will be connected with data center 2 or data center 3. They all make one region. When you purchase the services, let's say you are in Canada and you purchase the service in Canada East, and Canada East has a region that has 3 data centers. Let's say one in Markham, one in Scarborough. I'm just making out. One in Markham, one in Scarborough, one in GTA or Toronto area. They will also be connected with each other. You don't know and you don't need to know. You will call it as a region. Once you say that I want to acquire Azure services, it's up to, in a particular region, the whole GTA region, it's up to Microsoft that whether they create that in data center 1, data center 2, or data center 3. When you submit your request, all you are caring about, when you will be selecting from the drop down menu, you will be selecting which region you want to create your database, and then inside there what happens is a black hole for you. So it's a region could be a combination of only one data center or some interconnected data center, depending upon where that data center is located. If it is not located in a in a region where not a lot of population or whatnot, they might want to have one or two, but some regions could have 3 data center incorporated in it. They are connected with each other with a very high available internet connection, maybe less than 2 milliseconds. That's what you are seeing in the diagram, but we will look into that. So these are some of the regions, and there are lot more dots than this, but you can see there's one in the West US, and this is all of a region, and it could have multiple data centers inside it. East US, North Europe, uh, Southeast Asia, blah blah blah. We can add as many as you go, and more are coming on the way. So um, we will probably see some more clusters here, some cluster in this region, some. So there are more on the way, and they are always growing. It all depends upon um, the economies of scale. How much business they get. The more business they get, the more data centers they will deploy, and more the cost can come down. Well, I'm not sure about the cost coming down anyways. Once it's up, it's up. So the regions have the key characteristics. They are available on the geographical area on the planet. One, but usually more data centers are connected with low latency network, less than 2 milliseconds. That is what they target. So they have low latency. What do you mean by latency? What is latency? We are going to see a page really quickly uh, soon. The response time. Yes. So when I'm connected, so I'm coming to the topic. I'm just moving out of topic a little bit, but I want to elaborate a little bit more on latency. Yeah, right, right, Leonardo. Time to retrieve. Okay, thanks, Vinny. So latency. Let's look at a latency here. If I go to command prompt, I have my home network connected. My this computer is connected to my router, right? So my routers, there is a router's IP address, and there will be my wife's computer. My phone is also connected to my Wi-Fi. Everything is getting connected to my router. How much is the heartbeat? That is, my router is saying that I'm available, I'm available, I'm available, and same as my computer is saying I'm also available. When they are responding back to each other, this is called latency. What you want is the minimum latency, let's say less than 1 millisecond. The more the latency is, the more the data is having issue to travel between the two devices, right? The more the latency is, the data, if your router is running slow for whatever reason or have some hardware issues, if it is broadcasting to the network slowly, the chance is that when you receive the data from that router, you will have lag, or your page loading slowly or something like that. Sometimes you think that. What is the common command? Do you guys know the command to find out or to check the heartbeat? Nobody? The command is ping. Ping means I am available. So right now if I say ping, but what is ping? I need to know what is the IP address of my router, right? So I know for my network it is, I think, this is my IP address of my router at home. This is my local IP address. So let's try that out. I'm getting, most of the time you see I have 1 millisecond, 1 millisecond, 1 millisecond, and 3 millisecond, right? Uh, which is a good time. But if I have 20 millisecond or 30 millisecond, that means my router is running slow. I probably need to change that. But this is how I am getting an average reply on my system is 1 millisecond, which is good, right? My router is giving answer back to me. Same thing, if I know the IP address of my phone or my wife's laptop, and if I enter the IP address of her computer here, I will get some reply back from that. Being on the same network, I expect that I will get 1 ms or maximum 2 ms or 3 ms reply between that. But if I'm getting a slow reply, it could be because I'm getting connected to the router. My ping request is getting to the router. Router is sending request to her computer. Her computer replies back to the router. Router is sending back to my computer. So that is why the latency is the device. Two devices are involved, and I'm getting the latency. But in essence, what I'm meaning to say, low latency means fastest possible internet connection. And that's what they are trying to say, that they are trying to achieve the network connectivity between the two data centers with the minimum latency. And this is a very good performance between two data centers that are physically apart from each other. Location for your service, it depends upon which region you are. So you will try to acquire the most closest region. Some services are available in certain regions. You cannot expect all these dots to have all the services. Well, based on the availability, based on the resources, expertise in that area, how much Microsoft is willing to pay that engineer living in this area or this corner part of the world. It all depends. So depending upon the expertise in that area and the sources, not all the services are available in that area. Well, but if you want to hit a region that has maximum number of services available, we can find it out on the internet. We can look into that on the internet. I think there is a web page for which I have to look at the website address, and I will paste it in the chat window when I will come to that, when I will hit that slide. Some services are global, which are certain to be there, such as such are not assigned or deployed in a specific region. But for sure, I think SQL and virtual machine and data storage is available there. I think I heard AWS provide more than 200 services, 250 services. I don't know about Azure. I haven't Googled that, but Azure provides a lot of services as well. But as I mentioned, in total, they provide that many services, but depending upon some of the common services that we always see across all the part of the world will be there anyways. We are seeing that storage and virtual machines are there, so we will not be missing out on those. Assumption is it should be available in most part of the world. Globally, there are 50 plus regions available and more are coming, as I mentioned. So region is the geographical area on the planet, but usually more data centers are connected through the low latency network. This is we have covered. If we have covered it, I'm not going to repeat it. But the next part is some of them are special government regions. US DoD Central, US government Virginia. I think China has their own as well. So special partnered region. So these are some special regions, but for us, we should be okay if we are not working in some special agency or not. So we should be okay. So now we have covered the region. Coming back to so it is like an atom, and we are looking at the electrons, protons, and all that. So think of that right now. We are looking at the very small, we are looking at very abstract form of diagrams, but they are obviously bigger pieces than we can think of. So as I mentioned, data centers are connected with the high available internet with each other. So we can call this as availability zone 1, availability zone 3, availability zone 2. Data centers are named as availability zone 1 and 2. Okay, so what is the what could be the benefit of having the availability zone connected with availability zone 1 with availability zone 2, or 2 with 3, or 1 with 3, whatever is the situation is? Well, if you are choosing the availability zone, let's say if you have two virtual machines or a database, I think I should take the example of the database. If you have a database that is located in availability zone 2, let's say for example, and you have a database available and a copy of that is available in availability zone 3. For some reason, if this data center goes down because of the availability of or availability zone 3 is available, or this data center is available, if this availability goes down, you still not feel it because they are first in the same region because of the regional feature, grouping of physically separated facilities designed to protect from data centers failure. So if one data center goes down, the other one is still have the replicated data available on the availability zone 3 or data center 3. So if the center goes down, the other center seamlessly takes over and you don't even feel it. It might have happened having 50 plus region. If some data center, I haven't googled or I haven't heard the news, but let's say if some data center has been burnt down in some region or has some catastrophe, weather catastrophe or something, the availability zone make it still keep you seamless, because think of it, one is available, let's say in Edmonton, the other one is located in Red Deer, the third one is located in Calgary, and for some reason we have data center 1 which is in Edmonton goes down, 2 or 3 still are getting replicated 24/7 due to the high availability and low latency network. You will not find it that you will lose the data, and because the data is highly connected, uh, the the second availability zone kicks in or center kicks in and will take control as a single. So you will not find the downtime, and that is why they promise such a high level of availability. And we were seeing the charts 99.9 or 99.99% of availability. That's what their claim is, and that's why they are able to achieve. So in the availability zone, we can have two types of services, and that's what could be the exam questions that you are looking at. Zonal services, which includes virtual machines, disk, etc. And the zone redundant facilities, ones that is just zone available to a zone. So you might have a one virtual machines on availability zone and connected with you might have another virtual machine that you purchased. So you have two virtual machines, they are connected with each other. But zone, I'm focusing on zone redundant, just that same example which I mentioned about uh, the database, the replication of your database. So redundancy means equal. So once it's registered a transaction, one transaction is recorded on this data center, immediately another transaction is reported on an SQL database on another data center. So they are always equal. And if something happens, as I mentioned, high availability will give you redundancy. Not all the regions are supported. Supported region has 3 or more zones. Okay, let's look at this website. This is just a extra slide that came in. When we'll be doing some practical, we will be seeing that. But let's just so far what we have learned. We started with data centers. We make the regions. Availability zones can have one data center or more than one data centers inside that. So we can name it as availability zones, and then availability zone 1, availability zone 2, and availability zone 3. And they are all connected, and then the whole of it is considered as region. So this is very uh, important diagram to understand in context of the exam. They might confuse you. What is region? What is availability zone? What is data center? Right? So we have started all the microscopic level. We can look at that data center is the basic building block, which is not physically a small building block. It's a big environment, a facility which contains all the cooling and everything that we saw. But they can be they are highly connected with each other. If, for example, we want to create availability zones, so not all the availability zones have not all the availability zones not all the regions are created with the availability zones. As you can see that this region is just a region. It does not have the availability zone. It all depends where you can create redundancy and which availability zones you want to connect. So not only the data centers are highly connected with each other, availability zones are connected with each other as well. So this I will provide you in the in the D2L anyways, but this could be a good uh, test of questions that they might ask, and these are the questions that you will learn in Azure Fundamentals. So the thirst of having when I will do the practical part will come, but until and unless you understand what is happening inside each of that dot we see on the map. So it's a big setup. It's a worldwide setup, and it has to be infrastructured and understood. That is why we are here to learn this. Just repeat, I think. Okay, so once the regions are created, we can even create the pair of the regions. So the whole, but this is just a different definition of it. So once the regions are created, this is a separate region. We looked at it. This is a region. This is a region that we created, and then we can mingle them together to be a region pair. So if we combine two regions together, we can have a region pair. But not necessarily that all the regions that are I don't think so. Yeah, this is the region pair, and this is another region pair. There is not the circle is missing, but you can see this is also a region pair. I was about to create a circle around it. Yeah, here is the this is the region pair, but this is the general idea. So the region pair, each region is paired with another region, making it a region pair. Region pairs are static and cannot be chosen. Each pair resides within the same geography. So exception in Brazil. So I don't know why it is an exception in Brazil. I haven't looked at it, but each region pair within the same geographical area. So it is not likely that one region is in US and the other region is in Australia, and you'll try to create a region pair. Highly unlikely. It should be within that same region that you can create the region pair. Physical isolation within at least 300 miles distance when possible. So they are trying to make sure that when they are making the term region pairs, they are trying to isolate it whenever possible. So this could be an MCQ question as well. So there will be a lot of questions being asked around this in the exam. If it is, then you can look at it that I have provided with you some good enough material for all of this to go over. And this will be a good enough material to read through today. So I am adding more and more material. We are coming towards the end of the slides anyways. We are on chapter 20, page number 23. I will need to add more material to this. We will see that I have 1 to 7 chapter added. We are actually on the 7th chapter very fast. So these are the learning resources that you can go and strengthen your knowledge. And if you are planning to give Azure certification for fundamentals, this is a very good document that I'm maintaining for you along with the links. So don't just rely on the definitions and the short definitions that I put in here, but you can also read some extra material that is available from Microsoft website on which they will be testing. Let's finish this up, and I think we are here almost on the 16th and 21 slide. So region pairs. Services, okay, some services have platform provided replication, planned update across the pairs. So when they plan it across the pairs. So all the regions in that region pair gets update right there, and data residency maintains for disaster recovery. So regions pair provide extra layer of protection for that region. So some of the region pairs that they are mentioning: East US, West US. The East US might have 2 regions or 3 or 4 data centers merged together. So you have to understand the whole dynamics of this. Last part is the geography, where they are geographically located. That's what you see on the map. So the region pair here you are seeing is not connected with any other region pair, but geography, it is single head, same region pair is turned out to be considered as a geographical region. And same here, this is the geographical region, but here we have 4 regions, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Then we have a region pair, and when the region pairs are isolated within that, the 2 region pairs can be put together in one geography. So this could be a definition of it. So it's very, it starts to get really complicated when you think about data centers, then availability zones converted into or data centers converted into region and joined together because of availability zones, and then 2 regions are joined together to make a region pair. And that is why I used different color combination just to understand that these greens are the regions, yellows are the availability zones, data centers are light green color or teal, whatever color, and then you have this color mentioning about the region pair. Geographical regions, I see the region pairs are not connected. That's the only difference I find, that region pairs are not connected with any high-speed connection. So a true or false question could be, are region pairs connected with high internet and low latency internet? The answer is no, because only the regions can be connected or data centers can be connected, not the region pairs. So this is the slides. This I will upload that for you. Lot of reading material ready for you for examination point of view. Things starts to get substantial after we looked at um, all these definitions from high availability to elasticity to scalability, disaster recovery, and all that we saw from the initial definitions to whatever we have learned so far in the cloud world, the private cloud, the public cloud, the IaaS, the PaaS, all is coming into Azure fundamental certification. And now we are adding this regions and data centers and region pairs and availability zones, all is getting into that certification program.